I'm the curator of the art collection at Elmhurst College. And it is the Elmhurst College art collection that inspired me to do this symposium. Briefly, the college collection was started in 1971, and we currently have well over 100 pieces in the collection. It is a Chicago collection, a collection of Chicago-based artists, and it has an emphasis on artists who are referred to as the Chicago Images. And as I frequently give tours of the collection and I talk about humor in the work, I realize that this subject is a really good one for further discussion. And as I said, it was my inspiration for this symposium. So what I'm going to do, because we have some fantastic speakers coming up, I'm going to kind of just give you a sort of visual tour of some of the works that did inspire me to propose this symposium to the Terra Foundation. What you see before you is Jim Nutt's beautiful color pencil drawing called Can't You Wait? Good, I'm glad you're laughing. And here, as humor is used to critique society, to talk about sexuality, or to visually discuss sexuality. And we have a couple, male and female, wearing transparent clothing, the irony of clothes that are supposed to protect and preserve modesty, and doing just the opposite. And she tugs on his shirt in expectation, a kind of foreplay, and he responds with, or at least this is what I think, maybe Jim will tell you something else. He responds with, can't you wait? He is serving her. Notice the ice cream with the cherry on the top, and he is being served, note, by one of the smaller figures in the drawing. One of the things that I enjoy most about Jim's work is the tension between the elegance and the beauty of the craftsmanship, the drawing, or in the drawings or the paintings, and the content, which is pretty much out there in your face. And I think this drawing is certainly a good example of that. This work by Ray Yoshida has kind of become the poster child for this symposium, because it has been used on the postcards and poster e-blasts. And I thought it was kind of an interesting contrast to Jim's drawing, because they're both critiquing, maybe that's too serious a word, sexuality in our culture, in individuals, relationships. And while everything was revealed sexually, at least all the physical body parts, in Jim's drawing, everything here is concealed. And these figures are so concealed in their striped bathrobes that they even become part of their environment. Their heads are covered, they're faceless, and they blend into the background. The only thing that is not covered with the pattern are the diminutive little hands that gingerly open their clothing to reveal to each other, but not to us, their sexuality, while the figure on the left stands in a protective pose. This is Jim Nutt's painting, which I'm sure you saw at the MCA in his exhibition last year, Tutu Woo Woo, and we were very pleased to loan this work to the MCA for his show. And also, here I think Jim certainly talks about about sexuality, and the little figure in the bottom says, the little male figure says, I'm on my way. And I think a lot about Tutu Woo Woo, and I'm on my way, and the reference maybe, and maybe Jim will disagree or agree, maybe he'll say something later, to child's play. When they're playing with toys, toot toot woo woo, and playing with a train. But I'm on my way also sort of suggests in whatever activity these two figures are engaged on, they're on their way as well. And yet he sort of seems a bit helpless down there, but he's got a big smile on his face. Next. Gladys Nilsson's wonderful, very large watercolor. And by the way, I hope that you will take the opportunity to come out and see our collection. And I can talk to you more about that later. But this wonderful watercolor by Gladys Nilsson called In Vertical Shade. And I always think about Shakespeare, about all the world's a stage and we are merely players. Because Gladys is such a wonderful people watcher, such a dedicated people watcher, and with gentle wit and sarcasm makes these amazing visual images of these caricatured figures with elongated appendages and bulbous heads and pointy breasts, some of them have, and they are wearing masks, as we all do sometimes. And yet, my favorite part of this painting are the figures on the left, the sort of medium-sized figures who have little figures perched on their shoulders, peeking into their orifices, their noses, their ears, their mouths, as we often feel that we're being explored, investigated by those around us. And it can't be helped, I guess. Next. Roger Brown talking about disaster in a very kind of, again, a kind of critique of society, talking these two etchings, an aquatints, talking about, and this is part of a series that he did of paintings and prints on the theme of disasters. And so while the world is being shaken by earthquakes, or in some of the works, fire, and we are being overcome by natural disasters, what happens? Oh, we just go about our business, and we, if you look carefully at the silhouetted people in the windows, we continue to smoke or cook or kiss. And of course, there's the observer on the left-hand side, which is maybe Roger himself. He was so much in the tradition of the artist. He admired Edward Hopper, who was the observer, always looking in on those, looking through windows at people who were unaware. And I think that is emulated in Roger's work. And this is a second aquatint in that series, and this is called Standing Around While All Are Sinking. And I think you see the same kind of thing. There's a few people who seem a bit alarmed, but many who continue to go about their daily sort of mundane tasks. There's even if you look up at the top, you see someone who seems to be masturbating. So the fact that the world is falling apart doesn't seem to concern them. And there are, again, watchers. There are observers on the right and the left. Next. Art Green's wonderful painting about illusion. It's called Troubled Sleep. And it's constantly shifting. Is this a puzzle? Is this a window? Is the fire, what appears to be fire, it's actually paper, and layers and layers that you go through to finally get to that moonlit landscape, which I believe was inspired by a postcard that Ray Yoshida sent to Art Green on the occasion of his marriage. So, humor, illusion, to deal with, again, a kind of disaster, whether it's in a dream or in reality. And can you find the little key that will get you out of this maze of trouble? Next. And Jim Faulkner's wonderful drawing, Slep Portrait. I have a couple of self-portraits to show you. And I think it's interesting in the tradition of the self-portrait, which is so important in the history of art. We have a continuation of that idea here in Jim's drawing, and a play on the word self-portrait. And I don't know. I'm trying to remember what Jim just recently told me about this. He said something like, we're always, yeah, Jim, you're here. What was it that you told me yesterday about it? I know. Where are you? Oh, you can't remember it twice? Okay, something like we're always misspelling our we always misspell ourselves. So we've got this cartoonish, comic-like figure, which is Jim, and we know that, if we know Jim, by the glasses and the cap that he often wore, and these balloon-like clouds that surround him, and then this, in case you missed it, he writes in Slep Portrait. This is by Barbara Rossi. It's an etching, an aquatint. And the photograph that you see above is Barbara and her sister, a very sort of staid and conventional type of photograph of two young girls. And then below we see Barbara interpreting herself. And this is called, what's the title, Barbara? Poor self-trait. Poor self-trait instead of self-portrait. Poor self-trait. And it is also a number of works that have a variation on that title. So, poor self-trait. Right, and this one is called Poor Self-Trait number 2 or 3, curls, right? Wonderful. Next. Oh, another print by Barbara called Footprint Portrait, right? Footprint Portrait. I should look on your list there. Can I have that list? Or is it Footprint Picture? I'm sorry. Footprint Picture. And the mouth, of course, is a footprint. And we all need to be sure not to put our foot in our mouth, right? Next. Of course, Ed Paschke's wonderful painting, Cobmaster, a sort of darkly humorous assemblage of images, creating a new creature figure. Margaret Wharton's group of photographs. Margaret Wharton is certainly known for her amazing, whimsical, witty assemblages of work, of sculpture, constructions created from ordinary wooden chairs. And Here she does a series of photographs using the chair where, as you see, the chair in the center to the left, very carefully, methodically, even scientifically disassembled, and then becoming 6 sort of creature figures, 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom, and then carefully stacked in the photograph on the middle right, as if, a child, like a child who was done playing, carefully putting away the parts of the toy, the Legos, the blocks, whatever. And it's a wonderful series of works, carefully putting them away to perhaps tomorrow make some new figures. Next. So the idea of play in humor. And Carrick Pope, this wonderful drawing by Carrick Pope called The Pharaoh's Plaything. So again, the theme of play, and there sits this figure. It's a conglomeration of all kinds of things, an assemblage of all kinds of things with these elongated, attenuated appendages again, and sort of duck-like head, but sitting in front of a table filled with games, making a house of cards and balls, and continuing that idea of play. Now there is one more image that, I'm sorry, we need to keep going. Carl Wirsum's wonderful baker boy that was given to us by Mel Theobald, who is here, given to our collection. And this is actually a study for a work of public sculpture that was created in an industrial park in Munster, Indiana. And there was a competition for sculptures for the various companies. And it's actually, I've seen photographs of it, I've never seen the actual piece. It's made out of metal and baked enamel, which goes along with the idea of a bakery, since it's baked enamel, and it's quite colorful. But this very kind of manic figure twirling circles of dough. And also by Carl Wirsum, Bucky Cortez meets Downtown Roberto. And of course, Carl always loving, throughout his life, loving cartoons and comics from childhood. And I thought a lot about this piece in terms of the names of the figures and how comics in the 50s and 60s, the names of the characters were so important, such as Buck Rogers. And so we have Bucky Cortez, a very corpulent, round figure on the left. That's right. And then Downtown Roberto on the right, very svelte, muscular, and maybe a little sinister looking. And by the way, these are cutouts, thinking again of the idea of play, a little bit like paper dolls, but they are also meant to stand up in the way that, sometimes when you go in a restaurant and there are what's called table toppers advertising the specials on the menu. So Bucky Cortez and Downtown Roberto. And these are two wonderful pieces in our collection. Again, a wonderful play on words, a wonderful punning, and Carl Wirsum loves words, and they're so much a part of his work. This is called Ice, Pick, Nick, Fisherman. So Ice Pick, Nick, Fisherman, Ice Pick, Nick, Fisherman. And of course, the opportunity to speak about these works always makes me sort of do a little bit of research, and actually I looked up ice picks online, and it was quite interesting. And the references to ice picks and what ice picks are used for run the gamut from years ago when they were used to chip ice into small enough pieces to put in, before electricity, to put in ice boxes, to ice fishing, to murder. And so these rather, playful looking figures have ice picks in their back, and they are suspended in the air. And it makes you kind of wonder what we are, what they're saying here. Ice picnic, fisherman. Next. And of course, Click by Carl Wirsum, and of course, interesting story that he told me about this work when I asked Carl about the reference to the word click and to the little shoes down there at the bottom that are clicking, and he revealed to me that this is actually a portrait of his wife, Lori. And that at the time she was starring in a full-length feature film, animated and of Tappy Toe, called Tappy Toes, made by his friend and fellow artist Red Grooms. And it was the story of a young actress who got her big break because the star could not go on. And so there we have Lori. And he pointed out to me that at the time, and this was 1971, Lori wore her hair in this kind of double, 68. Okay, in this double ponytail. So there we have Click, wildly energetic, and certainly very humorous. I think. You will find it so. Next. And Skull Days. Skull Days. School days, good old-fashioned rule days. We all know that, or most of us know that rhyme. That was actually, my research told me it was from 1907. And so Skull Days, if you look up at the top, a play on the word school days, and this sort of monstrous, giant-sized red spider with the head of a woman with green hair nestled between its legs. Female spiders, I found, are very dangerous to the males of the species, as they often tend to eat them after mating. So it makes you wonder about this spider, because if you look at the bottom, to the left is, or to the right, to our right, is the word consort. Consort meaning mate or companion. And to the left, above the little figure, the word contort. Again, enjoying the sound, the play on the words that are so similar, meaning different things. And so I guess maybe this spider in Skull Days is a consort who contorts. Oh, notice the shoes. Notice the high-heeled shoes. That's so, okay. Oh, and I believe, I'll have to maybe ask Carl, that the figure of the woman, or the head of the woman, upper torso, I believe she's reading a book, which sort of relates to the idea of school days, good old-fashioned rule days when we were, how does it go? School days? Days. But arithmetic, to the tune of the hickory stick, and then, but the next part has something to do with Anybody know the next two lines? Yeah. I was your beau. I was your bashful barefoot beau. You were my queen in calico. Right, got it. Thank you. I have it written down, but... So, that's skull days, or school days. Skull days. Next. And I wanted to end with Paul Lamantia's wonderful drawing called Shoeshine. And somehow my extraordinary computer skills failed me, which probably is not a surprise to anybody who knows me. And it didn't get loaded onto my disk. But if you look on your program, on the front of your program, you will see the drawing. And it's a great early drawing of Paul Lamantia's. And notice the walking shoe. Notice the tongue with hair. Notice the nose, which is a dripping faucet. And what Paul told me about this drawing went something like this: that all of these creatures are something about all these creatures are real, or all these people are real. We don't know which are the good ones and which are the bad ones. Paul, what was it? Or did you make that up at the time too? Where's Paul? What? Right. Uh-huh. Yeah, we got that. But it was something about, because you told me about your other drawing too, that some of these guys are good and some of them are not good, but we don't know which are which. So, yeah. Well, now you got a little taste of what inspired me to do this seminar and some of the wonderful work in the Elmhurst College Art Collection. And I, again, invite you all out to see our collection. It is housed in our library, and we have very long hours, and also I'll be more than happy if a group wants to come out to give a tour, and we can talk a little bit more about that later.